This is 7 News with Angie Asimus.
Good morning. New COVID restrictions are now in force across Greater Sydney as the city races to control the spread of the virus. Until further notice, household gatherings in Sydney, Wollongong, the Central Coast and Blue Mountains are limited to 5 people and only 30 people can gather outdoors. The strict new rules were introduced after a new cluster emerged at Croydon with 6 cases across 3 households.
Extended families movements, that there will be more cases from that cluster. The Croydon cluster demonstrates what happens when there are larger family gatherings and how it only takes one person in that family gathering to give it to everybody else in the family.
18 new cases were reported yesterday, sparking urgent health alerts for a number of venues. They can be found on the 7 News website. The new restrictions have forced millions to change their plans for tonight's New Year's Eve celebrations. There will be no big indoor parties and outdoor events have been cancelled across Sydney. The Harbour Fireworks is one of the only displays and it is set to go off with no crowd. Victoria's 61-day run of 0 local infections has eased, with 3 Melbourne women testing positive to the virus. The Health Department is investigating whether the cases are linked to the Sydney cluster. It's prompted health alerts for potential exposure sites, including a shopping centre in Narre Warren on Boxing Day. Contact tracing is underway, with 40 people already identified as at risk and now in isolation. The 3 women live in Mitcham, Mentone and Hallam, all in Melbourne's east. They'll be retested to ensure they hadn't returned false positives. The Melbourne cases could see states slam shut their border to Victoria. Western Australia is expected to reconsider its assessment of Victoria as low risk, meaning restrictions could be reintroduced. South Australia could change its rules too. The state is already urging residents holidaying in New South Wales to return home as soon as possible, with Premier Stephen Marshall expected to announce new border restrictions today. Tonight's New Year's Eve celebrations will look vastly different across the country. Melbourne's CBD fireworks have been scrapped, but there will be a 2-day street feast in the city starting today. Fireworks displays have also been canned in Brisbane and Adelaide. Residents are, however, encouraged to celebrate at restaurants in both cities, and there will be fireworks in Darwin and Hobart with limits on crowds. Perth is set to have a relatively normal New Year's Eve with fireworks and performances in the city. Revellers are still urged to keep COVID safe though. The developing COVID crisis has also sparked calls for the 3rd cricket test to be moved from Sydney. Despite new limits on outdoor gatherings, the plan is for the SCG to host 25,000 fans.
The best health advice to us is that 50% capacity of that venue in an outdoor setting is safer than being in a household.
But health experts are criticising the decision, saying the benefits don't outweigh the risks. The United Kingdom has become the first country in the world to approve the Oxford-AstraZeneca COVID vaccine. It's hoped it will become the vaccine of the world because it's cheaper and easier to transport than vaccines made by both Pfizer and Moderna.
It's capable of being distributed at room temperature. And this is a massive thing for the world because Pfizer is great, but you have to send it round to care homes at -70.
Australia has secured almost 54 million doses of the Oxford vaccine, with 50 million of those already being made in Melbourne. The other 3.8 million will be delivered here early next year. The jab still needs to be approved by our Therapeutic Goods Administration. A drag racer accused of fleeing the scene of a horror crash on Melbourne's Monash Freeway has been charged. The 20-year-old is accused of speeding and weaving in and out of traffic. It's believed he was racing his white Toyota Camry against this ute. Moments later, the driver of the ute swerved to avoid a barrier and lost control. Instead of stopping, the accused driver fled, leaving 2 young men trapped in a mangled wreck. Multiple beaches in far north Queensland remain closed this morning after a suspected Irukandji jellyfish scare. A boy and woman were taken to hospital after they were stung. The Irukandji jellyfish are an extremely venomous species and can be deadly. A Perth grandmother claims her house and everything in it is on the line because of a $200 dog barking fine. Annette Dafus has found herself dragged into court facing a possible criminal conviction over her neighbour's noise complaint. She says she's got the wrong dogs.
Annette Dayfoss is a grandmother, chaplain and accused criminal after a neighbour repeatedly complained her dogs, Millie and Molly, bark incessantly. So the City of Stirling sent her a $200 infringement. She refused to pay.
They don't bark.
Her other neighbours took her side.
I've been here 2 years and I've never heard them bark once.
Never had a problem, ever.
The complainant made these recordings, which are now evidence in a criminal trial. The city charged Annette with failure to comply with a nuisance dog order.
I've been practising for over 25 years and I have never come across something this ludicrous before.
Annette's defence is simple.
Her dogs weren't the ones who were on the recordings.
5 neighbours will testify in court on Annette's behalf, though they say they shouldn't have to.
I could have solved this problem in 10 minutes.
As a ratepayer, really disappointed.
The cost to ratepayers is adding up.
The Shire had 2 lawyers. 2 lawyers representing them over a $200 dog fine.
The costs for this are completely disproportionate to the alleged offence of a dog barking.
The City of Stirling told 7 News it conducts thorough investigations for every dog noise complaint it receives, but it can't provide specific details for this one because of the impending trial. Annette says the stress forced her to move and even sent her temporarily blind. If she loses,
I certainly would lose everything that I have.
Cyan Doherty, 7 News.
Kerry-Ann Kennelly has been taken to hospital after falling off a trapeze. The 67-year-old Logie Hall of Famer was performing in the musical Pippin, which is showing in Sydney. The production has told 7 News she was taken to hospital as a precaution and has been seen by a doctor, but is feeling okay. Rex Airlines has flagged the possibility of employing foreign pilots to fly new routes between Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, despite 40% of local captains being out of work. The Singapore-controlled company is looking for dozens of pilots to fly the 6 737s it's adding to its fleet. While the rapidly expanding airline is yet to employ anyone on foreign visas, it won't rule out doing so. An argument about parking has sparked an explosive attack at a Western Sydney home. A new Toyota Ute left in ruins outside a Kingswood unit block after being firebombed. The whole shocking incident was captured on security video by the vehicle's distraught owner.
The moment a neighbourhood dispute explodes, a new Toyota Hilux up in flames.
There's an almighty explosion and I knew instantly, that's the Ute, she's gone. Absolutely gutted.
Just 2 nights after Christmas, security video shows a man stacking rubbish on top of the vehicle before pouring over an accelerant and setting it on fire. The Ute's owner asked not to be identified, now fearing for his own safety.
That I don't know them, I'm not out to make trouble.
His prized vehicle, worth $55,000, was also badly damaged on Christmas Eve, smashed up with a chair. Police have told the Ute's owner that whoever caused the explosion probably did it because they didn't like where it was parked.
Detective said this is probably just because you've parked in front of their rubbish bins.
Police arrested a man 2 days ago but released him without charge. They've told the owner of the Ute they're still investigating and are looking for more evidence.
Since the attack, I've put up a lot more cameras. I think it's just cowardly. It's just a senseless attack and basically you deserve what you get.
Tom Saker, 7 News.
The Christmas come down has left a worrying number of Australians anxious about paying their mortgage or rent. Already facing a grim start to 2021, the bill shock is only expected to get worse as pandemic support is wound back. But experts insist there are ways to relieve the strain.
Sian Jay's savings account has taken a double hit this month: Christmas and a new place.
Having to buy brand new furniture for a new house, paying, bond, 2 weeks rent in advance, it's a real struggle.
The 24-year-old needs a housemate so she can make the rent.
Keeps me up at night to be worrying about, how I'm going to pay bills in a couple of weeks if I don't have somebody there with me.
Comparison site Founder has dubbed it the Christmas come down. According to its latest numbers, 1 in 4 Australians are extremely nervous about making rent or mortgage repayments in January. Men are more anxious, 31%, compared to 19% of women.
Youth unemployment has hit a 23-year high. Millennials are among the group that are reporting the most strife.
Payment platform Defer It, used to cover a lot of household bills in January.
Traditionally, we've seen in January a 35% increase in volume of bill volume through the platform in that period.
Experts say you can put more money back in your pocket by paying close attention to streaming services, gym memberships, subscriptions. Can you leave any of them behind in 2020? Consider refinancing with interest rates at a record low, or split the cost of rent, bills and groceries by moving into a share house. The prediction for 2021:
the future is very uncertain and pretty grim right now.
Making it worse, job seeker gets slashed again. Jordan Katz, 7 News.
How's this for a tale of survival? This is Chicky, a very lucky Chihuahua cross that came within a whisker of drowning in a backyard swimming pool in Adelaide. After finding her floating and lifeless, her owner performed mouth-to-mouth.
Never done CPR on anyone or anything before, and I just thought, well, it works on humans, surely it can work on a dog.
Incredibly, it did. After 10 frantic minutes, Chicky came back to life. An injured passenger has been left behind by a driver who went on a rampage through Western Sydney. The man hit the accelerator after police switched on their sirens at Marylands. The stolen Toyota Hilux crashed into a mother and son before ending up in the front yard of a home on Woodville Road. The driver took off and was last seen running along Marylands Road. His passenger was treated for broken bones. Explosions have rocked the airport in Yemen's port city of Aden shortly after a plane carrying the newly formed government landed there. At least 16 people have been killed and 60 more wounded. The country's Prime Minister and cabinet members reportedly escaped unharmed and were whisked away to a presidential palace. 9 people have been injured after a landslide smashed into a residential area near the Norwegian capital. Several homes have also been destroyed. Some 200 have fled over fears of further landslides. America has set another devastating COVID record, the highest single-day death toll since the pandemic began. Live to US correspondent Tim Lester. Tim, the experts are warning it could even get worse.
Morning, Angie. Yes, this is the fear, as virologists and others know it, that events will then be followed by a rise in cases and ultimately a rise in deaths some weeks after the events they're concerned about. The events in this case, Christmas travel. 3.5 million Americans are known to have gone through airports in just the 3 days after Christmas, a reduction in general Christmas travel, but still posing greater risks for mid and late January in terms of the forecasts of health experts. Those numbers yesterday, Johns Hopkins University says that 3,725 Americans died just yesterday, their worst day of the pandemic. As well, a second record, 124,600 Americans are now hospitalised with COVID-19. That too a record, and that a deep concern, particularly in states like this one, California, where hospitals are resorting to using car parks and in some cases gift shops. One other worry here is the emergence of the UK more infectious strain of the coronavirus, found in one confirmed case in Colorado and now a second suspected case. It too is worrying virus officials as they look on in the US and predict how things will go in the weeks ahead. Angie?
Thank you, Tim.